Hello, Bishop Gorman. This is Mr. Petrant, the college counselor again, picking up where we left off on the common application. We're going to now start filling out the testing section. And while many schools are either test optional or test blind this year, there is an opportunity to still report your testing on the common application. A quick word about testing. If you're applying to a very selective school that is test optional, if your standardized test score is well above the 50% tile for scores for that particular school, it may still be a good idea to submit that. Also, you may want to check with your schools to ensure that if you are applying to a test optional school, that they are also test optional for scholarships. There are some schools out there that are test optional for admissions, but for scholarship purposes, you still need to submit some sort of standardized test, whether it be an SAT or an ACT. That varies from school to school, so you'll want to make sure that you check with your admissions office and that admissions officer that you speak with, whether it's through a college visit or whether you schedule a one on one meeting with a particular admission officer from a school that you're interested in. So let's go ahead and jump right in and answer the rest of these questions. So it says, in addition to sending official score reports as required by colleges, do you want to self report any scores? Now, this includes tests that you've already taken, but it also includes future tests. So let's assume that we do want to report some scores. And then it says, indicate all tests that you wish to report. Be sure to include tests you expect to take in addition to tests you have already taken. So let's go ahead and hit the drop down menu and let's say that we're going to take an ACT test. Now, all of the seniors are going to be offered the ACT test in October, and so that might be something that you're going to report. Additionally, you may have taken an AP test back in sophomore or junior year, or maybe you're going to take some this year and you'll want to include that as well. Remember, I do always encourage students to take at least the ACT and SAT one time each. However, in this year where we are test optional, again, that's up to you. You're not required to take them at many schools, but I would encourage you again to look at each individual school that you're applying to, determine if they are test optional or test blind, and then decide whether or not you're going to report scores based upon how well you did. All right, let's move forward. International applicants, so this should not apply to most of our students, so we're typically going to click no on this question. All right, we're going to go ahead and continue here. And remember, I put in that I was going to report an ACT test. Now, let's say that the number of past ACT tests that I wish to report. So let's say I haven't taken one yet, so that's going to be 0. And then a number of future ACT tests that I want to report, I'm going to report one of them. And when am I going to take that? I'm going to take that in um, 2020, and that's going to be October. So it's pretty easy to do that. You just click on the little calendar button here, and it gives you those options. All right, and then AP subject test. So I want to report 2 of those because let's say I've taken them in the past. Now remember, the AP tests are offered every May, and so let's say I took one in May of 18. Oops, not May of 2014. So let's say I went in 2018 in May, and if you take an AP test as a sophomore, typically that's world history. So I'm going to go ahead and select that one as the test that I took back in my sophomore year, and let's pretend I got a 4. All right, and the next one we're going to take, we're going to go ahead and say we took that in 2019, and let's do that right. So 2019 and May, and let's say that I took, oh, I don't know, let's say that I took AP Bio that year, and let's say I did really well on that one and I got a 5. So we're going to go ahead and continue. And then you'll notice that once I've done that, over here on the left hand side, testing now has a green check mark, which means that I'm done with that section. Now you can always go back and complete any of those sections or make corrections to those sections at any time before submitting them. Now in this section is where you get to report any activities that you've been involved in. They can be clubs, activities, sports, volunteering, community service, those things like that. This is where you might also put information about shadowing a professional in an industry that you're interested in. And so let's go ahead and say yes that we have some activities that we'd like to report. Now you do get to report up to 10 activities, but for the sake of this activity, I'm just going to do one. So I'm going to go ahead and say that this was athletics and that I played on let's say I played on the football team and I was the team captain, and then organization name, Bishop Gorman High School. But this would be a great opportunity if you played club soccer or club tennis, or you were a fencer, or you did something outside of school that is important to you. This would be a great opportunity for you to indicate that here so people know what you're doing. Now, that could even be piano lessons or something of that nature. It can be community service if you have an ongoing community service project. Say you're a candy striper at a hospital and you've done 250 hours of community service there. That might be something that you'd want to put into this section. And so let's say I was a state champion and All American. I wasn't a state champion or an All American as a player, but let's just pretend I was. And when did I participate in these items? All 4 years. And then time of participation, basically it was all year round. So, and let's say that in football, maybe we spend 35 hours per week. That's for practice, games, things of that nature, training. And let's say I do that for about 45 weeks out of the year. And then, do I want to do this in college? Yes or no? And so, if you had indicated that you wanted to do community service, for example, or that you volunteered at soup kitchens or whatever it might be, and that you want to continue that in college, it gives the person that's reading your application a little bit of an insight into what you've done in high school and what you're going to continue to do in college. Now, you'll notice it does say that there's 9 out of 10 available left. I don't want to add another activity at this time, but if you need to stop the video, fill out this section of your Common App, and then return, that's great. Now let's look at the writing section. So for the writing section, we're going to take a little bit of a stop here because right now I don't have any colleges listed on my Common App at this point. And it says some colleges require submission of the personal essay with your Common App. You must submit a personal essay to any college, even if it is not required by that college. Excuse me, you may submit an essay. If not required by a college, you will be given the option during submission to include your essay or not for that college. We're just going to go ahead and check that box that says we understand that information. Now, the next thing we're going to do is talk about how to add a college to your list of My Colleges. So if I click on the My Colleges tab here, you'll see that there aren't any colleges listed. So what we want to do is we want to come over to the College Search tab, and then at this point we can start typing in the names of colleges. Now, I went to the University of San Diego, and so I always like to put them on there. And we just go ahead and click on them, and then we're going to add that to My Colleges. So then it'll tell you that it's been added, and then if you come over and click on that tab, you'll see the University of San Diego listed. Now, I know a popular school for our students is the University of Southern California, or USC. And again, if we click on that and we just hit the little plus sign, it's now added it to my colleges, and you'll see that appear there as well. So let's go back to the Common App now, and we are going to go back to the writing section. Now, you can see that here's the current list of colleges on your dashboard that require the personal essay. So both of those require the personal essay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to look at UNLV and add them to my list. And when I go back to the Common App and I go back to the writing section, you'll see that UNLV does not require the essay. Now, a quick word about UNLV. If you're applying to UNLV, they actually prefer if you would just use the application that is on their website. It makes things a lot easier for you, and it's easier to get your NISHE number, your Nevada System of Higher Education number. And so if you are going to apply to UNLV while they are on the Common App, our admissions rep has told us that they prefer you apply direct to the institution on their website. Our other flagship institution in the state of Nevada, the University of Nevada, Reno, is not on the Common App, and you will have to go to unr.edu and then go to their admissions page, and you can apply right through their website as well. Both of those applications take approximately 20 minutes, and so those are pretty easy to complete compared to the Common App. Okay, so let's go ahead and scroll down a little bit. And then here are the 7 questions that are available through the Common App. And so these are the prompts that they give you, and you can write anywhere from 250 to 650 words. Now, I would not encourage you to write 251 words. If they give you 650 words, a good rule of thumb is to write your essay without looking at the word count. And then once it's done, go ahead and take the word count into consideration. And that's when you can start making some edits and cutting things down. Okay, a good essay you're going to have to rewrite several times anyway, and so don't be too worried about the word count for the first essay. So I would encourage you to type this into Google Doc or Microsoft Word and then copy and paste it here once it's done. Now, I always tell kids, let's finish the Common App, everything but the writing portion. Then you work on the writing portion and then you come back and finish that later. So once you've done that, you can go ahead and hit continue. Or if you want to skip this section, that's okay too. You can always come back and finish it later. Let's go to disciplinary history. And for 99% of you, you're going to not have anything to report to colleges and universities. If for some reason you feel compelled to hit the yes button, you do need to check with your school counselor prior to doing so and just ensure that they know that you are clicking the yes button. But again, for 99% of you, we're just going to click no here and move forward. Under the additional information tab, this is where you have an opportunity on your college admissions application to indicate anything that isn't reflected in your application. So this year they've added this COVID feature, and so it says essentially, is there anything that's kind of caused a disruption in your life because of COVID or a natural disaster or something that's kind of impacted you that's, causing maybe the results of your GPA or your test scores not to be what you thought they should have been. And so if you click yes, it gives you an opportunity to explain some of those things. So if you had, let's say, death in the family or something of that nature that really adversely impacted you for a semester, let's say you're a 4.0 student, all of a sudden spring of your junior year, a tragedy happens. You end up getting D's and C's that semester, and then after that, you come back and you're an all A student again. Well, obviously, something happened that semester, and so this would be an opportunity for you to explain something like that. Um, okay, having to do with COVID. And then, so let's just say I'm going to click no there. Do you wish to provide details of circumstances of qualifications not reflected in this application? Again, this might be an opportunity for you to do that, or it might be an opportunity for you to explain something about a job or some other activity. Again, you don't have to do that. So if you just click no, you can move forward. And let's go ahead and click continue. So you'll notice on the left hand side here that even though the writing has a green check, when we go back, the personal essay has not been completed, and so we still will need to do that prior to submitting the application. Now, courses and grades, that's only going to appear if you're required to list your courses and grades for a particular school. So the University of Southern California, for example, does require you to self-report all of your classes and the grades that you earned in those classes. I'm going to show you briefly how to do a little bit of that. But in order to do that, you will need access to your transcript. And so if you do have a school that is listed as required here, you'll say, yes, I'm able to obtain a copy of my transcript. And you can simply contact your counselor and get a copy of your unofficial transcript, and they'll be able to provide that for you. My transcript shows grades for courses I've completed. That's yes. And then what they're going to want you to do is they're going to want you to fill out what's going on for 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. So let's go ahead and add something to the 9th grade. And it's going to walk you through how to do all of this. But once we do that, it's pretty self-explanatory. So we just got to click next through all these. I'm just going to X out of it because I kind of know how to do it. If you ever need help, you can just click this button up here in the top right hand corner that says view the walkthrough, and it'll kind of remind you. So because you've only selected one school, or maybe you have more than one school, say you transferred to Bishop Gorman from out of state or somewhere in the school district or another private school, you'll see multiple schools listed here because you've already inputted those. So let's say I attended Bishop Gorman, and this was going to be the 2017-2018 school year, which would have been your freshman year. And a grading scale, we are an A to F grading scale, and we're on a semester schedule for classes. So let's say that I'm going to report, let's say this is English, and my course name was going to be Honors English 1. And my course level, so that's going to just be honors. Now again, this might be familiar. We want to list honors or AP. If you have a scholars class, while it doesn't say scholars on here because that is a designation that our school gives only, I might call that kind of an advanced class. So if you want to list it as an honors class, that's fine, but I would be consistent. All scholars classes probably should be listed as advanced. But again, here where we have an honors class, we're just going to hit honors. Now, this is confusing for some kids because there is a red star above final here, but you will not put a grade in the final box column. So for semester 1, let's say we earned an A minus. For semester 2, let's say I got a B plus, and then the final grade, I'm just going to leave it blank because we don't have a final grade, and this is not the grade you got on your final exam. Now, semester credits, each semester at Bishop Gorman, we get zero point 0.5 credits for completing that, or 1 full credit for the entire year. Let's go ahead and now work on the second class, and I'll just do this to show you how it works. So let's say I took algebra, and let's say that this was just algebra 1. And this is going to be a college prep class. Now, again, all of the classes that we offer in academic classes or core classes, math, English, science, social studies, world religion, those can all be listed as college prep classes if there are standard level classes. Okay. Then let's go ahead and report our grades here. So let's say we got an A plus first semester, and let's say we got an A minus second semester. And again, you are not going to fill in the final grade column because our grade systems don't work like that. We are on a semester system where semester 1 you get a grade, semester 2 your grade is independent, and then we don't have a final grade. So we're going to go ahead and hit 0.5 for each of the semesters, and then we are going to continue. Okay, so if we go back to that, we can see that completed courses and grades entered 2. And so once you've done this, you can click the button that says I've reported all of my grades for this class and hit continue. Now you can see that 9th grade has a check mark and 10th, 11th, and 12th will not. Okay, so you would want to go ahead and report all of your grades for those classes if you have a school that requires this. Once you've finished that, you're going to go ahead and go to My Colleges. And here's where you're going to start answering individualized questions for particular schools. So let's click on the University of San Diego, my alma mater, just as an example. You'll see here that under the college information on the left, it'll say questions, recommenders in FERPA, and review and submit common application. So under the questions tab, there are a few questions that you'll have to answer about each college. These may be unique to each college, but you have to answer them nevertheless. So the term that you are applying for. So for all of you, you're typically, or for most of you, excuse me, you should be applying for the fall of 2021. You'll graduate in the spring of 2021 in May, and then you'll start college in August or September, okay? Now admissions plan, this is important. We're going to click regular decision here, and then do you intend to pursue need-based financial aid? Let's say yes, and we're going to go ahead and continue. Now under academic interest, this by no means is hard and fast rule. This doesn't mean you have to study these topics, but I'm going to say that I want to do business administration, and I also am interested in leadership studies. So that's what I actually did at the University of San Diego, and so those are the things that I'm going to put. Now it says USD is now test optional. Would you like us to use your test scores when reviewing your application? And if you click yes, that's great. If you click no, that's great also. All of these colleges and universities that are test optional have told us time and time again that if you select to not submit a score, that it will not negatively impact your application, and we have to take them at their word on that. So I truly believe that if they say they're test optional, that not submitting a score will not negatively impact you. However, what that does mean is that for a very competitive school like USC or University of San Diego, they are going to then do a further or more in-depth holistic review where they're going to really look at your GPA now. They're going to really look at your strength of schedule or your academic rigor. And so if everyone that applies to USC and gets in from Bishop Gorman has a lot of AP and honors classes, and you're not at that same level, that those are the types of things that might negatively impact your application. So understand that if you're an amazing test taker and you might have scored a 15-20 on your SAT, you should definitely submit that. Let's say at a school like USC, if you got an 1100, obviously that's below their median 50%. I would not suggest submitting that score. So that's just a little bit of information there. If you have any questions about whether you should submit your individual score to a particular college or university, feel free to reach out to me, set up an appointment, send me an email, and I'm happy to answer those questions for you. Now, have you previously applied to the University of San Diego? Because you guys are now applying for the first time to college, the answer should be no. And how did you learn about the University of San Diego? Let's say you went to a college fair, and then you can also add your high school counselor. Sorry, so there's actually 10 ways to do this. Let's do high school counselor, and that was Mr. Petranton. And then we're going to add another contact. And let's say you went to the college fair at Bishop Gorman last year, and that was in October of 19. A quick word about college fairs. We are having a college fair on October 4th and October 11th. It is a virtual fair. The registration for that will be forthcoming. Additionally, WACAC is also having another virtual fair just after the October 11th date. I believe it's on October 13th or 14th. And so there are some schools that are coming to the Southern Nevada College Week Fair on the 4th and the 11th that are not going to the WACAC Fair later in the week, and vice versa. One notable school is Ohio State University and University of New Mexico. They are typically at our own college fair, but this year, because of how close those fairs are, they've decided to only attend the WACAC fair. So I would encourage you, once registration is available, I will send those links out to everyone so they can see what schools are coming to which fair, and they can make decisions on which ones they want to attend. It will be completely free to attend those virtual fairs. And for the Southern Nevada College Week fairs, there's a really neat platform that they're using for those fairs. And so I think you guys will like that. All right, let's go ahead and hit continue. And then at every college, they kind of want to know if you are a legacy, meaning have you had a mother or father or other relative attend that school. Some schools, if you've had a relative go there in the past, they consider you a legacy for application and admissions purposes, and that sometimes will benefit you in the process. So, are any siblings also applying for undergraduate admissions to USD? Yes or no? Oftentimes, if you're a twin or if you have another sibling that is applying at the same time, schools don't like to accept one sibling and not the other. So sometimes that can work out in your benefit if you do have a sibling that is going there as well. So I'm going to click no, I don't have a sibling going with me at this time. Do you have any relatives who are currently attending or who have ever attended University of San Diego? I do not. But if we click yes, they want to know, are any of those relatives a sibling, parent, or grandparent? So if your cousin went there, that's not going to count for them. So I'm going to go ahead and click no. And then do you have any relatives that have either worked at university in the past or are currently employed? If you click yes, they're going to want to know who that person was. Okay, so pretty straightforward. And then the other information tab, these are a few additional questions that colleges like to ask. And this first one here asks you to reply to this particular prompt. Notice that it has a minimum of 150 words and a max of 350, so it's not a full-blown essay. It then asks you to respond to one of these additional 3 prompts. And so you have the opportunity to do that here. Again, a shorter essay. And if you are a Catholic, and again, this is unique to University of San Diego, please enter the name, city, and state of your home parish. Are you an international student? No. Excuse me. And then, have you ever been adjudicated guilty or convicted of a misdemeanor or felony? Now, you do have to answer these questions, even as a minor, and so you need to be honest on these questions. But for probably 100% of you here, that's not going to be an issue. Now, so you'll notice that my questions tab is not green because I have not completed all of those questions. So now this is one of the important parts, and I really want you to focus here. I know this has been a long video or a long section of this video, but this is a very important part. So the FERPA release authorization. So let's go ahead and complete the release. Now, basically what the FERPA authorization is this is allowing Bishop Gorman to submit your transcripts and all letters of recommendation. And if you sign this, indicating that you do allow us to do this and that you're not going to, kind of review these things once they've been sent to the university, then we'll go ahead and send those. So let's go ahead and actually do this. So let's say I've read and understood the FERPA release authorization. I acknowledge that every school that I've attended can release these documents. Now, in order for your teachers and your counselors to write you an honest recommendation, you can read these and answer them appropriately, but I waive my right to review all recommendations and supporting documents. So this means if your teacher writes you a letter of recommendation and you don't get into UNLV, for example, you would have the opportunity to review those documents. However, educational professionals tend to want you to waive your rights to those documents, and so, checking this first radio button is what most of us should do. You understand that my waiver or no waiver selection above pertains to all colleges, and then you want to go ahead and sign your name electronically here, and we're going to pick today's date or whatever day you complete this on. All right, now, once I've done that, you'll see that I have a check mark for recommenders in FERPA, and I do have a green check mark up here on top. Now, where it says invite recommenders, do not, in this section, request a letter of recommendation from your counselor, and do not request a letter of recommendation from your teacher. So please do not use this common application to request any letters of recommendation from school employees. We will go through the process of how to do that in another link that's listed on your class of 2021 Google Calendar or Google Classroom, and you can go ahead and review that link at another time. But at this point, we are pretty much done here. Now, where it says advisor, you could invite someone here where it does say advisor for you to let, I don't know, another college counselor have access to your application. You may want to add your parents and they can look at your application, or even a friend. But be careful about doing that because then they do have all of your personal information that is listed here. But for the most part, if you wanted someone to look through your application, I would just go ahead and let them view that while you're doing it. So let's go ahead and hit continue. Now this brings us to a very important part, and essentially we're done with the common application. So once you would have answered all of these questions, now remember, we do have some additional things that we want to finish here. And then once recommenders in FERPA has that check mark, now we're going to do something called matching the Common App with Naviance. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to Naviance. Well, I got to get signed in here because it's been too long since I was signed in. And let's go ahead and do that real quick.